Hello, my name is Emily LeBlanc, and for this memoir, I decided to read The Ride Together, a brother and sister's memoir of autism in the family by Paul and Judy Karasik. The Ride Together is a captivating book written by a brother and sister about their family's experience with autism, starting in the late 1940s and ending in the very early 2000s. The book, written half in comics and half in text, shares the history of their family of six, with a focus on how it affects and is shaped by their oldest brother David. The book is written in the perspective of the two authors and follows a timeline of events in their lives growing up. These events were simple and complex, some of which include learning to work around and with David's routines, which he had created, as their mother explained, to make sense of things, such as his performance of shows, sometimes which he did for hours at a time. This was something David did starting as a young child and continued into adulthood, where he would act out all of the roles of popular TV shows such as Superman or political talk shows. He had a vast knowledge of names, characters, and political views because of this. More events included playing poker with one of David's old teachers and being inspired by the way she behaved so laid back around their brother. Or the time Judy, David's sister, asked their mother why David didn't have to do the same things the other kids did, such as clean his room. Judy and Paul both shared stories of their first times they got to take care of David by themselves. Judy in early adulthood, caring for him while their parents were out of town, and Paul as a late teenager when he was prompted by his mother to invite him along to go see a movie. All of these memories and stories painted the picture of what simple day-to-day activities looked like with their brother. However, there were more complex stories told as well, such as when their grandfather and aunt, who had severe cerebral palsy, moved in with them, or the many trials of trying to find a resident and job program for David when he got older. Amongst these trials was finding out he and many, many others had been being abused in a residence facility called Brook Farms, which they had thought was an amazing program. The book covers the complexities of life and how it is both amplified and simplified at times by having someone in the family with autism. This book is so full of love and honesty, and I highly recommend it. The first theme I recognized in this book was family and the sacrifice that everyone makes. Though every family looks different, there is a common theme among all of them, especially those of which have someone in the family with a disability, and that is that it takes a village. This is shown in the many characters which enter the family's lives and play such an important role, such as their nurse Dorothy, who they hired to help care for their sick grandfather and aunt when they move in, or Miss Murphy, David's old teacher that became a good family friend, and even the local barber that cut all of the children's hair for years and that David loved so much that he once snuck out of the house and rode the bus across town to go see. The second theme I noticed was it is a coming-of-age story for all of the characters involved. The siblings in this book grew up faster in some ways and had a better understanding of people that were different than them in all sense of the word. Siblings learn to understand and adapt, and therefore see the world a bit differently. I share a comic from the book. This is a comic created by Paul, and it is a story of him when he was younger, and he had invited a friend to come over to read a Superman comic with him, which had just come out. And right before they get to the house, his friend uses the R word, and it makes him very uncomfortable, and he then lies and says he actually doesn't have the comic. And this is just one example of some of the things that children are more aware of and possibly have to go through when in this family unit, that type of family unit, I should say. The last theme which I noticed was the societal understandings and acceptance of disability over the years. Though this was not outright said, it was very obvious to me throughout reading the book. When David was born in 1948, the understanding and acceptance of those with autism were slim in society. David's mother, Joan, was told she was a refrigerator mother, essentially claiming her son's behavior and slower development was because she didn't love him enough or was cold. Joan and her husband, Monroe, received several different types of diagnoses over the years. And the author also shares some of the conversations which they had with their mother about their aunt who had severe cerebral palsy and what it was like growing up with her. The mother recalls when she was younger trying to teach her sister how to crawl, and how her father felt very insulted by this and felt like she was insulting her sister by doing this, when in reality she was just trying to help. It also shared that the father, when their aunt was first born, took a trip to a medical convention looking for a cure for her disability, which we now know there is no cure for cerebral palsy. This is a great example of how far we have come in our understanding of disability and how this conversation has been going on for a long time. This is a comic which I thought was a great example of some of the daily trials that families can face at times, and maybe just the hardships that they can feel when a child is maybe nonverbal or is delayed in their language development. In this part of the book, David was very upset when he was a young boy at a doctor's appointment. He had been crying for quite a long time, and the father was decided to take a walk and get a drink of water. And he leans down to take a drink, and David leans down and gets some water. And Monroe, the father, says, "How about that? The kid was just thirsty." And Joan says, "He simply couldn't tell us, because as soon as he took that drink, he stopped crying, and that's just all he needed. But he wasn't able to use his words at that time at his age, and that's all he needed." The contribution of this book, I believe, is that it provides a look into the lives of those that have loved ones which experience disability. It also gives its audience a chance to grow their understanding of those with disability and what life may be like for them as well as their families. I highly enjoyed reading this book, and I hope that you do too. Thank you.